You're listening to That Music Podcast with Bryson Tarvin, the curriculum designer and educational consultant behind That Music Teacher and the Elementary Music Summit. Each week, Bryson and his guests will dive into the reality of being an elementary music teacher and how music can truly be transformative in the lives of the students you serve. Show notes and resources mentioned in this episode can be found at thatmusicteacher.com.
Hello and welcome back to That Music Podcast. I am so glad that you've decided to share some time with me. I'm really excited for this conversation because I've had my ukuleles for a while now, and I want to talk about how that's gone in my classroom. So first, a little bit of backstory. I asked for the first time for ukuleles at the end of my first year of teaching, and they got denied. And then I asked again, and they got approved. And then COVID happened and everything blew up. So obviously no budgets happened and we waited and nothing happened. So I didn't get my ukuleles. This past year, I finally got my ukuleles. I got 30 ukuleles at my 5th and 6th grade school, and it has been absolutely wonderful. So I wanted to dive into some things that I've learned, some things that I'm glad I did, and some things I wish I would have done differently when I got the ukuleles and how I kind of have implemented into my curriculum so far. One thing I'm really glad I did is I had the students help me with the constant tuning of ukuleles when I first got them. And I want to be very clear, I have not taught my students how to use how to tune the ukuleles yet. I hope to get there at some point. But right now, what I mean when I said have them help me is essentially the first week or so that we had the ukuleles, I just left them out kind of against the wall. And at the beginning of every class, everyone would grab a ukulele, bring it up to me, I'd really tune it. And that would be that. So we did that I was able to tune them essentially like 4 times a day because I have 4 periods of 4 classes at that school every day. So obviously it takes a while when you have a new string instrument to get them to keep their tune. So it took a while, but instead of me going around from one to next, picking it up, tuning it, putting it down, picking it up, tuning it, and so on, having the students bring it up to me has allowed me to focus more on tuning, and we were able to get all the tuning done in about 5 minutes, which definitely would have taken a lot longer had I had to take them out of the cases and things like that. So that's one thing that I'm really glad I did, and that's something I do whenever. Now I don't have to tune them every single time because they're holding their tune more. But whenever I tune them, I have the students take them out of the cases and bring them up to me so that I only have to tune them. So that that's something I'm really glad that I did. One thing that I wish I would have done is I labeled the ukuleles. I gave them all numbers, which I think was a good idea on my part, but then I didn't do anything with those numbers. I wish that I would have come up with a way to ensure that I knew which student has the ukulele, because we've had a lot of essentially giving them an assigned number, because we've had a lot of issues with the students messing with the tuning pegs and making them really, really tight, to the point where I'm worried that eventually a string might break. So I've had a lot of conversations about not doing that, but nothing seems to have worked so far of actually getting the students to not do that. So when we bring them back out after winter break, we'll likely be getting assigned numbers. So at least I can kind of track down the number, kind of track down the student if I need to. Again, I want to allow my students to tune them. We're not quite there yet. So I don't want them to mess around until they know what to do. And I say that as someone who learned a string instrument in school and was really interested in the tuning pegs, and broke many, many strings. One thing that I have really noticed about the ukulele, and including my classroom, is I was able to allow students that really didn't click with the style of music education that typically goes on in my classroom to allow them to be engaged in the ukuleles. So I follow a traditional Kodai sequence. We do a lot of singing. In 5th and 6th grade, that's not everyone's jam. I totally get it. That's one reason why I wanted to get the ukuleles, is so that I could get another type of music making, or at least a way that we could basically have a different option, so that it wasn't just folk songs and singing all day, which obviously I'm kind of simplifying, but having instruments like a ukulele allowed a lot of my students that weren't really big into singing, especially singing with others or singing in front of people, Not that I have people sing in front of people, but here we are. The opportunity to still be musical. So that's something that's kind of the biggest reason that I wanted the ukuleles. And I am so glad that I've been able to see that. I had a hunch. It was kind of a little bit of a hypothesis that some of these students would really latch onto it. And thankfully I was correct. And a lot of the students that didn't really like music class before, or at least show that they liked it, I've been able to see them show a little bit of a different story. Before we continue, I wanted to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by the Steady Beat Survival Guide. In this free ebook, we'll dive into my top 20 songs, chants, and activities for Steady Beat so that you can truly build the strong foundation of musical understanding that is just so incredibly important when we're talking about a concept so core like Steady Beat. To grab your free copy of this ebook, head on over to thatmusicteacher.com/steadybeat, or you can check out the description wherever you're listening. Now let's dive back into the episode. One thing that I liked that I included was a lot of play-alongs from the beginning. I found a lot of play-alongs on YouTube of songs that the kids would know that were school appropriate, that they let me, even if they had 2 chords, we could play just by learning 1 chord. We could play on the chords we knew and then not play on the other chord, which allowed us to scaffold that up. And that got them playing a song they knew from day one, which I think was important because learning a new instrument can be hard. And I think it's really important for us to give them a positive experience on day one so that they can see what this work will be about and why it's worth it, honestly. On the flip side of that, I definitely was not the most in depth when it came to my plans. When I first started implementing the ukulele, we kind of just went with it a little bit more than I probably should have. Which was great because I got to be really responsive to the students that were in front of me. Not so great because the sequence of things I didn't really think out the sequence of teaching things until I was kind of realizing, oh, I probably should have done this first. So again, definitely experimenting. So some things I definitely do is kind of spend a little bit more in the planning stages of the ukulele rather than just kind of the amount of time that I spent making the lessons currently, but we'll get there. And kind of looking forward to the rest of the year. Obviously, I don't do ukulele every time. We definitely were a little ukulele heavy at the beginning of the year just because it was new and all the kids were really excited about these instruments that showed up, and so was I, obviously. But now we're kind of weaving in some other things as well. And as we go into when we get back from winter break, I would love to include more instrument centers so that I'm able to work more one-on-one or small group with students that might be struggling or might be wanting to learn a new chord that might be a little bit more advanced, but also just giving them the opportunity to experiment a little bit more rather than just only playing what we're doing as a class, which I think could be good. I don't know how that's going to work. I looked at TPT or see if I could make anything myself yet. But I know there's stuff out there, and I know that I really think that having some sort of center thing like that might also make it easier to integrate it into my Kodai curriculum, which, again, like I said, is something I want to do a little bit more of. Now, as for the actual ukulele itself, I really love the ukuleles that I ordered. So I got the Kala Waterman ukuleles from West Music. Those are the ones that I've requested ever since I first started asking for ukuleles, which is really funny because the first proposal that I have talks about how they're plastic and they'll be really easy to wipe down in flu season, which is right like before COVID happened, which I think is just hilarious in retrospect. But I love that they're plastic. So if we have a big, a lot of bugs going around the school, we can, wipe them down a little bit easier. The wood's not going to get weird. They don't tend to go super weird with changes in temperature, which I knew was important because my room is all over the place at that school. The climate control in that room my room at that school can be a little bit up and down. So I wanted to make sure that they'd be okay with that. They're keeping their tune really well once I got through that initial stretching out the strings part, which was rough, but we got through it like we talked about. I really like the ukuleles that we chose. I think that they were really good value. I think that they're keeping their tune, and they're also we've had a couple drops, kids, we've had a couple drops and things like that. And some of them, I'm like, oh, that's the end of it. And I haven't noticed any cracks or anything like that so far. So obviously they're still relatively new. So I'm sure we'll start getting some things breaking or things like that as the years go on. But I'm really impressed with how they've held up, how they are doing exactly what I wanted them to do in my classroom. And I'm really enjoyed them. I have to say, I've been playing the ukulele since college, and I've absolutely loved it. I use it with my preschoolers in their lessons. I use it sometimes in kindergarten. But being able to bring it into um, the middle school setting and allowing the kids to experience that with me, I think is really cool. I've had a lot of students be like, "Hey, can you send me some links to some ukuleles that you would suggest?" And I definitely sent those out. I was like, "Hey, yeah, if you want some, so you can send these links to your parents, whatever." And I've had a couple students that are receiving ukuleles for Christmas, which I think is awesome. And they're able to bring what we're working on in the music classroom and bring it home and bring it and make it theirs, because um, I mean, who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want the music happening in our classroom to make its way home and make its way out of our classroom? That's kind of the whole point we do this sometimes. So I've really been loving the ukulele. I definitely have some things to learn about how to make it more engaging, how to make it more sequenced and more integrated, rather than kind of, all right, we're going to stop doing this coda stuff for a minute and we're going to do some ukulele. So I definitely want to do things like that, which is quite frankly why I'm really excited for the masterclass taught by Jennifer this month um, in that music teacher community, because it's all about that. It's all about including daily in the music classroom in a sequenced and kind of important and thought through way. And I'm really excited about that because that's definitely something I'm missing. I hope to find some personal development opportunities at OMEA when I go this year. But overall, this episode was supposed to be a little bit like a little bit of a check-in on the ukulele, since we've had them for about half the year, and it's been great. The students have really latched onto it. They've engaged with it a lot. I'm enjoying it, they're enjoying it, and I think we've got a winner here, and I'm really excited to see what we do over the next few years as we're able to, as I'm able to grow as an educator that has ukuleles and knows how to teach ukuleles, but also as just education changes and the student population I serve changes, and see how that all translates into the music that's happening in my classroom. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, I would mean the world to me if you would leave a review wherever you're listening now. Those reviews really help us get in front of new people, but also help us understand what types of episodes you're really looking forward to and what you want to see more of. If you haven't joined us inside that music community, I would love to formally invite you. We have lots of PD in there. It's a growing library of professional development specifically for elementary music teachers. You can check out more in the description below, as well as by heading over to thatmusicteacher.com. We would love to have you there. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. With that being said, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being awesome. And if in case nobody has told you lately, thank you so much for making a difference in the lives of students that you teach.